Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a DADCAW. It's 10:36 in the evening, Saturday, the 10th day of the 10th month of the 20th year of 2000. I think that made sense somewhere down the line. Anyway, wanted to talk about Deliverance. I have some announcements to be making. It's also related to Hydra and related to Full Toilet. I know that DADCAW is not really the format for this, so there's going to be quite a bit of meandering in the way that I explain this. Not the least reason of which is it's late and I have a bit of a headache and I'm tired and blah blah. Excuses. But yeah, prepare yourself, for you are going to experience the ramble. So, what am I rambling about today? Like I said, Deliverance. Announcements, I don't know, sounds kind of grim. If you know anything about the development process of StarCraft projects, usually announcements in the middle of production mean something horrible has happened. Well, actually, I think this is quite a positive, although it does mean that I'll come right on and say, spoiler, Deliverance is canceled. It's over. And the reason I'm not actually that broken up about this is because I really want to explore the concept of Deliverance's story in another avenue when I actually have the freedom to do so. So I'm going to walk you through a couple of thought examples here, sort of, not really thought examples, that's not even a fucking term of phrase, but I'm going to walk you through some ideas, my thought process, my logic for why I've arrived at the conclusion that results in Deliverance being canceled. For one, I should allay anybody's concerns. I will still be producing a campaign with the help of Veek for Full Toilet. Yes, even though we have less than a month left, I am still confident we can make at least 2 maps, probably 3 maps, and that they will be somewhat interesting, or at the very least satisfying in terms of gameplay. And complete, most importantly. But why did I decide to pull the plug on Deliverance specifically? Well, I've been working on the Hydra game state for the last few months. Well, really for the last 2 years, but most specifically, after I worked on the Deliverance maps themselves last month, in the month of August, actually, so 2 months ago, really. I think it was early September as well. We worked on some Deliverance stuff, if I had to guess off the top of my head. I spent the last couple of weeks at the very least, if not the last entire calendar month, 30 days or whatever, fully invested in working on Hydra, with the intention of returning to Deliverance development at some point when the need arose, when it made sense, right? Now, the situation that I find myself in the current moment is that ultimately, I'm not actually convinced that Deliverance would even be that satisfying to play, let alone to continue development on from a developer's angle. I just mean from a player's perspective. And the reasons are manifold, but they all stem from the fact that, as Veek so eloquently put it in our DMs when we were talking this over, StarCraft is just a pile of stacked, ever-increasing, diminishing returns. So it's a situation where the work that you have to do to get that last couple percent of completion, of polish, of functionality, and in some cases even the most basic things, but in other cases it really is just the last layer of polish that you would want to put on something that you're putting your name on. The amount of work that you have to put into that just exceeds anything that's reasonable. And a good example would be actually something that I've been thinking about recently because I've been trying to figure out why it doesn't work. I've had to reverse engineer a few different functions of the game in an effort to fix some hard code that stops you from being able to specify add-on positions for certain unit IDs. And I need this because I want to have an add-on for the command center. And without this change, the add-on would be built inside the command center, which would technically work. It's not like it would say building unplaceable or whatever. I have tested it without any fixes, and it does technically work, but it's stupid. It means that the quarry in this case is the add-on. The add-on is just stuck inside the command center, and it looks stupid, and it might even fuck up with pathfinding and hitbox stuff. It's obviously really difficult to target down. It's not at all the intended result. That would be a bug if you saw that in the game and you thought, oh, that's weird. Something must have happened. Yeah, something happened. All right. It was the fucking engine being dumb and lard code existing, really. So the presence of hard code in this particular case has made it it's a nice example, I think, because in order to fix this seemingly very small problem, I essentially need to hook multiple functions, reverse engineer multiple functions, and somewhere along the line, a small thing has gone wrong, or there's some other conflicting piece of a plugin because we're using multiple plugins for this particular purpose. And we're getting issues like, one plugin crashing the program, another plugin might just be spitting out the wrong info, maybe some sort of register corruption somewhere down the line that could cause a different issue later on. It's just a tangled mess. We have no debugging tools. We have no proper way to really triage this issue. And the only solution seems to be to manually redo the hook in order to make this happen, which is, of course, asinine and stupid and not something that anybody should have to do. I don't even care if it's not me doing it. Like, iCore volunteered to do it, right? But it's stupid. Like, I shouldn't have to do that. Nobody should have to do that just so that they can say, hey, this building should be built on at these coordinates when being built from this building. Now, in the past, we had to worry about this with future stations as well. Like, there was another reason to get this hook because there were 3 different structures of different sizes that needed to be able to build an add-on at the right coordinates. And obviously we couldn't do that if they were all different sizes because it's a one size fits all thing. It's like this add-on, this unit specifically has a position for itself and has very little to do with like, whether or not, you can't check for like one unit ID, like the source unit, the main parent building. You can't check for that. You can only check for what unit ID the add-on is and then give it coordinates. So you have to hook these functions so that you can add additional functionality into the functions. And like just the fact that you have to do that alone for something as insignificant really in the grand scheme of things as an add-on position is ridiculous. And that's not a very like high isolated example. It's very much like par for the course for Brood War modding to have to do stuff like that. So there's a lot of other things that lead me to feel like StarCraft is just not suited for a large scale project. Some of them are related to additional engine issues that we have not been able to resolve, like the in-game unit, bullet, and image limits, such that you will just run into cannot create more units. Valkyries will fail to fire missiles and stuff like that. That's a classic. That even happens in fucking 1v1 games sometimes because there's like a bullet limit of 80 or 90 or 100 or something in that very small range. Like it might as well be double digits as far as I know. It's ridiculous. And that's a case where it just doesn't, there is no reason for something like that, right? That's just lard code, and the fact that they didn't bother expanding it. Like they have access to the source code. They don't have to reverse engineer anything. They changed like one casting part or whatever. Like they changed the class of variable that class of variable. They just changed the class of variable or argument that a certain thing is, and suddenly you can have 65535 or whatever. You can have 4 million bullets. Like that's fine. That's literally how easy it is for Blizzard to change in their fucking code base. So it really doesn't make any sense why we have to suffer in the way that we do, right? But if we can't even get past the CCMU limit, which is less than 2,000 units, there's literally no reason to even play Deliverance because Deliverance has really big maps. Every single map of the 4 maps that we were planning on shipping have potential. In some cases, it's almost impossible to not hit CCMU like after the first map, but even the first map has potential to hit CCMU. And if you can't even build units in an RTS, your game isn't functioning. Your product isn't functioning, right? So our project would be dysfunctional and would be very annoying to play. It would essentially force that you must win or you must eliminate certain numbers of players by like certain breakpoints, or they'll just use up all of the slots. Especially since Zerg is very commonly like they are very much the cause of a lot of CCMU hitting early on. Like eventually the other races would also contribute very heavily as well, but Zerg have larvae and they've got all the hatcheries and all that shit. So of course they contribute to it disproportionately in the early game at the very least. So if you don't kill enough Zerg players in the maps, then you just can't build units, basically. It's ridiculous to expect that kind of shit and to have to work around that, right? Like we would just need to downsize the campaign if we wanted to do that. At which point it's not really, that's a concession that's too far. You're always going to make concessions when you're modding. I think you're probably always going to make concessions in some way, shape, or form, even when you have your own like source engine access and stuff, just because like, sometimes it doesn't translate from your thoughts, from your concepts, from your ideas into gameplay, into actual execution, right? So there's always going to be some kind of concession. Especially with modding, you expect a decent number. Especially with Brood War modding, you expect a lot of concessions, right? You expect a lot of stupid shit that you're going to have to deal with along the way. That being said, I think that shit like this is just straight up inexcusable. I feel like we got to find situations where we don't have to worry about not being able to build more than 1650 units, I think it is, or like 1700 units or something like that. Like in a game where you can only even have 8 players anyway, like that's stupid. I mean, the player limit is also stupid. Like I really should be able to have like 32 players or 64 players or 255 players or whatever I want, like whatever I deem suitable for my map. And I should be able to have map sizes bigger than 256 by 256. And the only reason I'm even thinking about a lot of this stuff, right, is because we have the new engine on the cusp of being developed. Like it's going to start development within a month, probably. If I had to guess, I would say it probably won't take us that long to wrap up Full Toilet, play all the submissions and all that, because I think it's only me and Iquare, to be honest. Me, Veek, as a team, and then Iquare by himself, all alone, man against Rust, working to produce Overlord, some sort of tech demo for it. But anyway, the point is, like, presumably within 30 days, like within a calendar month, we will be done working with StarCraft in terms of large scale projects. We might still have some map craps along the way. I reckon we probably will, just because we'll want to make something while we can't wait. Like it's going to be difficult to wait until the new engine is ready for content development to actually make content, right? So that is a concern. But considering the fact that you're dealing with a situation where we are dealing with not being able to really do anything that we want to do. So we need this new engine in order to do most of the things that we want to do. Like at what point are you making too many concessions, basically, to go back to the point about concessions? And there's a lot of concessions here. Like the fact that I can't have map sizes bigger than 256 by 256. The fact that I can't have players more than 8. The fact that I can't have units more than 1700. The fact that, really those 3 should be, they really should kill any project dead of any significant scale, like what Deliverance is meant to be. And at that point, the concessions have gone too far. Another thing to consider is the fact that this was initially supposed to be a 7-map campaign, and we downsized it to 4, which already was a step too far, and I should have recognized it then, because that is a situation where like the whole motivation for me to work on anything for Full Toilet in the first place is so that I can end my time with StarCraft by releasing a complete campaign that you can play, that doesn't hit CCMU within 10 minutes on the first map or whatever, that doesn't lack some sort of realization of its scale, that is reasonable, that is challenging, that is entertaining, that is satisfying, that is engrossing, that is immersing, that's an actual experience. And you can't have any of that with what Deliverance's concept is. And if it's not complete, then it's not even worth making in the first place, really, in a way, you know what I mean? Like in terms of justifying itself by the end, like I want my projects, all of my projects from now on, essentially, unless it's expressly a tech demo, right? I want my projects to justify themselves beyond saying, oh, well, I learned a lot of skills there. Like recently I've been doing all these interviews on the second channel. And one of the things that I'm really proud of with the last couple are that I feel like even though I'm learning a lot with every single interview that I'm doing, and I'm like, practicing a lot of new skills, and I'm really experiencing this sort of content grind from a different angle and a different discipline, and I'm really enjoying the learning experience that comes with that. I also feel like I can stand proud and say I made some high quality content. Like in an objective sense, it adds value to the world. And it doesn't need to hide behind, hey, at least I have something where my skills have improved. It's not very good. Like, in Consummate is an example of this. It's not very good, but it was a stepping stone to better things. I want to be able to say the same thing that I can say about my interviews. I want to say that same shit about my projects in StarCraft or in the new engine or whatever. And I know it's going to be a while before I can really get into heavy duty tech demo stuff or heavy duty content development stuff in the new engine. It's probably going to be maybe a year, maybe half a year, maybe longer. And I don't necessarily need it to be any particular time frame because I'm dedicated to working on this for a long time. I don't care really how long it takes. So like I'm in it for the long haul essentially, but I'm looking at it, the angle of working on Deliverance. And it's like the motivation that was there because I wanted to complete something that I wanted it to be high quality. I wanted it to be large scale. It can't be high quality if you can't even play it without like achieving anything close to the scale that you want. And the reason for it is actually destructive to the gameplay, like not being able to build more units or whatever, or crashing because of like table overflows. It's obviously not going to be large scale because of the fact that we talked about limited units, players, map sizes, and it's not even going to be complete. So like at no point does it pass muster. At no point do you feel like it's actually worthwhile. At no point does it really justify itself. independent of me practicing and learning skills. And like I made some really cool map layouts and I feel really good about those. And had those been released, or had those been able to be released in a context where you can actually experience them for all of the value that they could provide, then I would be very proud of that. And I would say that does add value to the world, that it does is something that can stand on its own merits. But obviously it can't in a really limited environment. And so as much as it feels almost like a betrayal of my own standards, I do think that the path forward is to lower the scale, like reduce the scale of my ambition or whatever, and decide that I'm going to make a very tight, simple, small scale in a sense, like small to medium scale for my money, which is probably still going to be medium to large scale for most people who have played other custom content. I want to have a situation where you don't hit CCMU, or you're at least at a far reduced risk of hitting CCMU, and that you're not dealing with limited, feeling like the map should be populated by more players, or feeling like the map should be bigger than it is. Like I want it to feel adequate for the engine. I want the engine to suit what is going on. And in this case, like that means I have to really reshape a lot of shit. So I'm not going to give too many details about the new project because it is very new in development, obviously. But considering the fact that it's map crap style, I will reveal that it is going to be comedic in nature. It's going to have likable characters that are really just going to be kind of, they sort of just take things at face value a lot of in that sort of situation. You're going to be thrown into the story sort of in medias res, like in the middle of not really the fight, but like in the middle of the sort of event. It's going to be wacky in terms of its actual plot. Like if you laid out the events of the story on paper and looked at them, they would look really goofy. But it's going to be played straight enough that you're really still going to be able to attach yourself to the characters. And I'm quite happy with the rough outline that I've mocked up mentally. So certainly we're going to be going into more detail. Obviously I'll be streaming the development of the missions for that. I'm not sure if I'll make a Wikidot article. I probably will at some point, but I've been so busy with other things that I'm not sure if I'll get around to it in the near future. But for sure, by the end of the month, we'll probably have something like that. It's just so that I can organize my thoughts on it. And obviously, on the 3rd of November, we're going to have some maps to show for ourselves. And they will not be Deliverance's maps, unfortunately. But I still think that people will have a good time playing this. It'll be something that I can say is complete. It'll be something that I can say stands on its own merits, even if the merits are not as epic as I wanted them to be initially. And I'll still be able to say that I completed something for StarCraft before moving on to my new engine. And, who knows? Maybe I add on maps or something, continue the story in some map craps along the way, immediately following Full Toilet. Like maybe we do a map crap in like late November or something. So we'll see where that goes. We'll see what that leaves us with. But thanks for sticking around for this important announcement. And I think I covered everything. I do have a sneaking suspicion that maybe I missed one particular crucial idea. But yeah, that's essentially the thought process, the logic, the things that I was thinking about. I'm sure there's many other complaints that I have about working within Brood War. So that's probably what I'm thinking that I forgot, because I probably forgot to talk about how ridiculous it is and giving another example. But I don't think you need that. I think you guys have grasped just how annoying it is to work with this engine and how much of a relief it will be to have our own engine and to feel like we can be responsible for the quality of the work that we've done. And yeah, that is going to do it for me. Stay tuned for some more updates as time goes on. Obviously, a lot of more interviews at the other channel have been going down. That's something that I probably wanted to talk about at some point in this DADCAW, but can't really. It's already chock full of info, so we'll just have to do another one soon where I go over that and my thought process behind that. So stay tuned for that. And I will catch you guys on the next mod stream or the next fraud night or whatever. Whatever you choose to grace my presence with, or grace us with your presence. There you go. I figured it out.